Welcome to the Not Superheroes Just Dads podcast. No, we can't fly. No, we can't shoot lasers or pick up giant buildings. But what we can do is help set the foundations for our families, be present for our kids, and come back generational cycles. On this podcast, we dive into everything dad related, from the struggles we deal with as fathers to what our favorite thing to barbecue is. Hello, I'm Sean Laurie. I hope you guys are doing amazing today. It's about to be, or actually, by the time you hear this, Mother's Day already passed. So, of course, happy Mother's Day to all the beautiful mothers out there. And yeah, guys, like always, make sure you like, subscribe. You watching on YouTube, click that subscribe button. But Spotify, Apple, wherever you consume this, man, I appreciate you guys so much. Now, with that being said, I was just joking with him saying, he's basically a celebrity now, man, because it's just so hard to be at a set time, because he's a busy man. He's a busy man. He's a father. He's a pastor. He's a son. He's a brother. He's a mentor. He's so many different things. He wears so many different hats. So I'm just so thankful to have you on today, Kevin. How are you today?
Man, Sean, I'm honored, man, to be on this podcast and love what you're doing, man. The consistency is what wins, man. Most people start something. I'm one of them. You start something, start a podcast, you run for like a year or two, and you're like, on to the next, man. Love that you've been consistent with it for years now. And really just creating this platform for people to have a voice and really just bring authenticity back into a world that's just saturated with so much superficial stuff and drama, and even I would almost even say like scripted drama, right? And so it's like it's hard for people to be really present in some spaces because they're trying to get the newest reel, or the newest trend, or go viral. And it's like, man, how can we just focus on being ourselves and being authentic? And so, man, appreciate you creating the space.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, man. I've known Kevin for some years now. I don't even know, since 2013, I think.
Jeez,
2013.
yeah, somewhere around there, man.
Oh, out there.
On the
It's been
basketball court.
yeah, on the basketball court, crossing them. I'm just kidding. Crossing them up, dunking on them. No, I'm just playing.
Yes.
With that being said, man, I like to do a little icebreaker. So before we dive into it, man, I wanted to ask you, as a pastor, right? Like, what inspired you to be able to step into that role? Because I kind of look at it like it maybe happened before you started your family, but like it has to be kind of difficult, right? At times, like stepping into that role, like being a pastor. So what inspired you to step into that role?
Yeah.
And how have you been able to juggle that now?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Honestly, man, I grew up as a missionary kid. Parents, grew up in the church all my life. Bro, never thought as a kid that I'd be a pastor.
Really?
However, man, yeah, bro, like I get, so my dad has always been in higher education space, specifically in Christian universities. And so I would see these theologian students, seminary students, man, and just look at them and see what they're doing, what they're preaching on stage, or what they're trying to learn in class did not reflect what they were really living out, outside of class and all
Mm,
of that. And then on top of that, like, you know, being in ministry always looked like you had to live this like poverty poverty life, man. And I was just like, and then I'm already feeling like I'm living a poverty life as a missionary kid. So it's just like, I don't want none of this. I want the opposite. I want to make
yeah.
some money. I want to be successful in that. And kind of went that route and was doing pretty well. Had an accounting degree, MBA in finance. Started running my own consulting company. Was doing pretty well. Um, and then in the middle of it, or 2 years into it, God calls me into ministry. And part of it wasn't just like a slap in the face, Kevin, get it together, go go be a pastor. But it was more of a gradual like step into serving in the local church and really starting to discover God's love for the local church. And as I drew closer to God's heart, it just aligned me to what God is passionate about, and it's his local church, which he calls his bride. And so I was just like, man, okay, how can I, as I continue to serve in the local church and serve God's people, it just kept like revealing how things and ways that I can serve the local church at a bigger capacity, and just eventually landed into a pastoral role. Like, when I first started in ministry, man, it was just volunteering. Like, hey, I got, I see these youth who need a mentor, and I just got married. I'm probably 26, and me and my wife were young, and we felt like we're still, relatable to the youth. And so it's like, hey, let's just connect with these kids and encourage them. And then eventually just grew to like different roles as I just said yes. Never went to Bible college, and never, again, never thought I would be in this role. I would say one thing though, last year my my mom passed away suddenly,
Mm,
and crazy experience, man. And a few things that maybe I'll share later on, but a few things that really just revealed, the how when the church is activated, the
mm,
true community of church is activated to love on people when they are broken, when they are hurt, when they are dealing with a crisis. Man, I just saw that in so evident when my mom passed, that
mm,
it just drew me to a place of like even a deeper desire to really just serve God's people at a whole nother level, because the testimonies I was hearing from the community about my mom, who was this short lady, 5'1", if that, one of the quietest ladies, person in the room. But man, like the type of like power and impact she had on a
mm,
community was insane, bro. And it was just a level of just act of service. She just went above and beyond to help people feel like they're loved, seen, and valued.
mm,
And she just loved to give. I mean, we talk about her testimony was she passed away in a car accident. On her way, she had just baked a fresh baked bread, and she was on her way to hand it off to one of our closest family members who just had a baby.
wow.
And it was just like that was, it's like, man, she passed away living out her purpose, living
Yeah.
out what people are gonna be remembering her about, from. And so,
Mm,
and then all that to say, like, I remember at 8 years old, she told me, she was like, Kevin, you're going to be a pastor, just like her dad was a pastor, one of the first pastors in Rwanda. And she's like, you're going to be a pastor like your grandfather, like my dad. And I was like, as a kid, I was like, hell no. But looking back now, and you're saying, I'm like, man, I'm a pastor, is crazy.
mm,
And then also, just now, like, really wanting to live out her legacy,
yeah.
at the fullest.
That's dope, man. You actually made me think too, like how when you reflect, because I'm thinking too, right? As I'm sure for your family, because it's gonna be Mother's Day, right? With her not being there, but you're able to
Hmm.
live out what she already called for you, right? So like,
Yeah.
bro, is that one of those like surreal feelings when you kind of look back? Like, obviously, like she was called home, but it's like her spirit is living with you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Her spirit is living with me. Her purpose and her purpose in life is being continued, and it's almost,
Mm,
I believe and I hope as much
yeah.
as possible that I can carry that purpose as well as she did, and yeah. And so, yeah, I agree with you, man. I think it's an
So
opportunity to continue to live out her legacy.
that's dope, bro. And you said like you was able to see the church move and really support you and kind of come into action when something obviously terrible happened, right? A disaster in a
Mm.
sense. And so, I want to ask you about that as well, bro, as far as because I'm sure a lot of you guys heard or read or saw the few months ago those natural disasters in California with the crazy
Mm,
fires. And in that though, bro, I saw you like in the mix of all of that, right? I'm like, whoa, this is crazy.
mm,
So like what inspired you, you know, to even be like, let me be a part of that? Because I
yeah,
think it was mostly in LA, if I remember, and
yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't affecting you necessarily, maybe people you knew, but to take that on, and again, it's crazy, just full circle because the same way you was trying to make sure you're there for those people, they were there for you as well. Maybe
mm,
earlier the year before, so that's just crazy how God
yeah,
kind of made that full circle. But I wanted to ask you, bro, what led you to lead the charge or help lead the charge for that?
yeah. No, that's a good question, man. Um, I remember, having a conversation with a a pretty popular, well-known bishop out here in LA a few years, probably about a year or two ago, no, 2, 3 years ago, and we were talking through some strategies, and we were talking through, some things that I'm dreaming about, and he was super excited. And and I'm like, oh man, I don't know what I'm gonna get from this bishop, but obviously, like, it's gonna be great. In my head, to a certain degree, I was thinking, like, he's probably gonna, fund, help fund some of the initiatives we're doing and all of that. Bro, I remember this one statement he gave me, and he was like, and I laughed because it was like, it was real. It was real, and I'm like, I love it, I love it. But he was like, hey, Kevin, um, silver and gold have I none, but but I do have, what I will do is support you, and you have all of my time, all of my resources, in regards to networking,
Mm,
in regards to other resources that he might have connections with. And bro, so I remember, one of my good friends, the night of the LA fires, I think it was like a Tuesday night or something like that. When things really just was like popping out there, and we're hearing about like the devastation at that point. I hit him up, and I'm just checking up on him. I'm like, hey, his church is literally like on the line of Pasadena and Altadena, and so I'm like just checking in with him and just seeing how it's going. Bro, you've lived in LA, man, or Southern California. Like, we have fires all the time, but most of the fires are never like devastating. You know what I mean? And so honestly, like, I called just thinking like, oh, okay, maybe uh, a uh, part of the mountain burned down, or they're dealing with smoke issues or something like that. Bro, I'm on the phone with my friend, and he's just almost like crying, like, he's like, man, this place looks like a bomb hit this city, and I'm like, are you serious? I'm shocked, and so at the same time, I'm hearing and feeling my brother's burden and sadness and despair, and I'm like, the and then starting to hear the devastation. I'm like, bro, even if I cleared out my bank account, right? Even if I cleared out my bank account, I wouldn't even make a dent towards the work and the need that is there for this community. However, I was like, but what do I have in my hands? What do I have in my proximity? And it was the network that that God has allowed me to build the last 4 years, and is over 500 pastors across the U.S. and multiple churches and denominations. And I mean, it's a blessing to be a part of something like that. But I was like, I was like, Lord, what I have in my hands is this network, and it's a network of your church. And so I see your church being one that can be, if working together, can be one that can have a real impact, with bringing our resources together. And so I was like, hey, bro, here's what we're gonna do. I walked him through a few things, like set up some things so that when I push, when I release it to the network, now the network has a direct line of connection to what his church is doing towards the initiative that they're having, and be able to be literally on the ground helping those who are in need. And so literally that's what we did. We just turned on the switch for the church to be the church, for the church to love their neighbors, for the church to be a light and salt, to be a beacon of light. And so, bro, I mean, it's one of those testimonies to just um, confirm that the church is still alive. The church is still willing and able to be unified. The church is still available to support one another so that nobody is lacking anything, living out Acts 2. And so, anyways, that's kind of like the journey in regards to how we started getting involved, um, and really just being on the grounds and supporting. It just went
Mhm.
back to like a brother was in need. A brother was vulnerable enough in expressing, the desperate need that was in his community, and we just rallied the church to be the church.
That's dope. I like it, man. So I
Yeah,
wanted to ask you, was it's two questions. The first part is because like you said, you was really, out there trying to help and support, your fellow brothers and sisters in need. What was probably the toughest, if there maybe there was multiple or just one that, not just one, but one that really sticks out? What was one of the toughest moments you witnessed during the fires? And then what would you say? Because, and I know you, so for it's different from you, but there's a lot of those people that, right, like you said, you was in action, but a lot of times people view it as, the church community's not gonna really look out for me, or they just want my money, or they're just, they don't, because, right, like you said, the ironic part is, right, was like growing up, like, man, these people preaching, they struggling, right? Where it's
yeah,
like now it's like, oh, there's that celebrity pastor, right? Look, he's driving his Benz or whatever the case is, right? Like, and right or wrong, people view it as, what, they're using the money that I'm giving to pay their mortgage or whatever, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but again, I know you, so I know that's not the case. But so, how do you? I mean, I think it's dope because you're kind of debunking that stereotype in a sense, right? Like, no, I'm
yeah,
really, I saw people in need, so I'm out here. So, just how do you feel when I guess people have that point of view? And but the first
yeah,
question is, have you? What was the toughest moment that you witnessed during the fires?
yeah. No, that's good, man. Great questions, bro. I would say tackling the first question in regards to the toughest moment. I think that was like the day of where the fires really blew up, the night before. So that same day, I think I went out. I went out later that day to just be on the ground to just see really like, okay, how can I support? This church was literally has since that moment has been on the front line and will stay in the front line, until Altadena is restored. And I wasn't, I went to go and just be on the ground, man, and just support them. I remember getting there, and that night, we got a chance to go and pray for people who had been evacuated and put in the Pasadena Convention Center, and we got a chance to go pray for people, just connect with people and encourage them, and just see the need, see if even start identifying some church members and seeing how we can, how the church can come alongside and get them situated. And I remember one person coming up to us and sharing that, man, he just, and this is before National Guard got up there and closed Altadenas, but people, right, like the first 2 days, people were just going and looting.
Wow.
And that was another crazy part. People were going and looting, going and looting and stealing from like people who already just lost everything. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And so it
Yeah.
was insane to kind of just see the demonic piece of crisis
Yeah.
in regards to that. But this guy goes up and he comes back and he's like, hey, crying and just devastated. He's like, yeah, I just saw my sister's remains, you
Wow.
know, and
Wow.
he's, I mean, just in shock. And he lost his home. He's misplaced and just doesn't know what's next. And then he's also, just dealt with looking at his sister's remains. And that's in moments like that, man, you don't have an ability. All you can do is just, you don't even have any words to say, and all you can do is just be present with them in that moment, make them feel like they're not alone. Um, and that was the best we could do. That was the best we could do at the time. At the time. But yeah, that was one of the toughest moments. And then other moments were like, just hearing the amount of families that were misplaced, but then also didn't have a lot of there wasn't enough available resource in at the immediate crisis moment to make sure everybody had a place to stay and for long term. So like Airbnb was was providing like housing, but they had limitations, and they started to like mark up prices, ridiculous prices.
Mhm.
uh and it was just like, man, like how are you gonna why how are you going to like take advantage of you know moments like this where people are vulnerable. And so that was another tough space to just kind of watch and see, and as much as possible support and help, but just seeing the amount of families being displaced, and still not really being supported, and making sure that they have a space that they're staying at longer than 2 days. So you're seeing families just moving like every 2 days, every week, into
Wow.
something new, because there wasn't anything really set up for long term 30-day stay or anything like that. And so seeing families literally living mobile,
Mm.
weeks at a time was tough as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually, I know I had that other question for you, but you just thought you triggered something for me that I wanted to ask as well. So in that moment, is it hard? Obviously, you know, like y'all, if y'all don't know, Kevin's one of the kindest persons that I've ever met. And and I know you have a big heart, and you're a God fearing man, you're a leader. In that though, because I'm just thinking, right? I'm like, people were looting, right? Everyone
Hmm.
lost everything, and
Hmm.
people are looting.
Yeah.
Um, People need places to stay, but in that, they're looking at it as profit, right? The Airbnb
Yes.
and all that stuff, right? And
Yeah.
so when there's disasters, right? I mean, let's be honest. When there's disasters, hey, that's the best time to invest in the stock market, right? Because things are going bad.
Right. 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 Right.
So
Right.
in that though, in that moment, because you're really on the ground, you're seeing it. It's not on TV. It's not,
Hmm.
oh man, that sucks. Oh, I'm gonna pray for them, right? We hear, oh yeah, I'll
Yeah.
pray for 'em. And then they might not even pray, right? They might not even do that, right?
Yeah.
But you're really on the grounds. So with
Yeah.
that, bro, does it make it hard at times to believe that what's the word I'm looking for, like humanity, right? Like there's
Hmm.
really, like, right, because in that moment, because I'm thinking of someone that had to deal with the fires, right? And they're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I lost a loved one, I lost my pet, I lost my home, I need somewhere to stay. What you're trying to, you know, you would never charge me these prices, and you're charging me these prices. I'm
Yeah.
basically homeless now, right? In
Yeah.
that, it could maybe cause some bitterness in someone and cause
Yeah.
resentment. It can even make them mad at God, right? Even though it wasn't
Yeah.
God's doing, right? Like
Right.
in that moment, bro, like I guess one, what is your what do you think when you can see? people operating like that? And two,
Mm.
because you actually was there, what is some of those things? What is some of the maybe strategies or um uh like what's the word I'm looking for? Strategies that you might have provided once you guys got the resources for emotionally and to have the support that they needed for the fires.
Yeah.
Hopefully that wasn't too
Um,
loaded. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think I got you. And then if I miss it, you bring me back.
Yeah.
Um, the I'll say two things. I think crisis reveals your true character,
Mm,
or I would say even crisis reveals what you're currently dealing with at the moment. So, for example, if you're dealing with scarcity, right? Crisis is just going to enhance that,
mm,
and you're going and scarcity is going to make you feel like you you got to scrap and you're dying and you're not going to survive, and so like you're going to hoard whatever you got, or you're going to um go out of bounds and go find other go find other resources that are out there. Crisis will also reveal your either your pride, right? Like I don't want help, um, but but you here you are really struggling, and not willing to be vulnerable and expose like, hey, I am struggling, I need help. Crisis is also going to expose um, your level of like what's pride. Yeah, I said pride, but even more so your level of like envy, your level of jealousy, your level of or even your level of abundance, your level of faith, your level of hope, your level of love for people, for others. And so crisis just it's just one of those moments that it just uh it it tightens us up into a space, into a box, and it forces us to deal with what's currently happening in the moment in our true character, because there's no time to really create any fluff because our emotions are high. And so so that's one piece. I would say the other piece I would highlight too is that um the opportunity that we have in regards to crisis is that we have an opportunity um, to see people show up in a way that is more humane, right? Because because now, like a crisis like this, it didn't it didn't discriminate, right? It was like you're rich, you're poor, you're white, you're black, you're yellow, you're brown, you're young, you're old. It didn't discriminate. It just devastated everyone. And so it forces us to be more humane because now we're all literally dealing with one thing. A person in a multi-million-dollar home was homeless just the same way as somebody who was renting a studio apartment, and they had like three people in there. You know what I mean? Like all layers of demographics were hit the same way, and so it just kind of reveals a place of humanity, and we get a chance as human beings to be to be humane, right? But at the same time, too, right? As I just said, it reveals your character. So if you're in a place of toxicity, if you're in a place of of um, of to looking to take advantage of people, these are prime moments, right? Bro, one example I'll share is, to be honest, some of these like relief organizations, man, um, they'll come in and swoop in with a level of like, we're here to help. We're gonna bring truckloads of stuff to just help you guys, but you, but the truckloads of stuff that come through, man, are stuff that are not relatable to the disaster. It's like,
mm,
um, like shower caps or like some random stuff that are just like, this has nothing to do with getting me back restored and back on my feet, with
Mm,
somebody who lost. Like it literally, it's like, hey, we have a whole bunch of random stuff that was donated to us from Costco or from or from these other Walmart or whatever, and we got to get rid of this shipment. And so let's just dump it. Let's just get it
that's
out
true.
to these moments of crisis, because at a certain point during the crisis, people are going to just take anything, right?
True.
But then you're looking at some of the things and you're like, what what is somebody going to do with, you know, with like a paper fan?
Yeah.
Like what is somebody going to do with,
A
some
bottle of
just
hot sauce or something.
a bout of like some really random stuff, bro. Um, and initially people were taking them, but at the end, like really, once people, and then clothes, people are donating ton of clothes, bro, ton of clothes. And at the beginning, it's like, okay, yes, it's needed, but then you find like, weeks pass, like people are still donating because it's like, I'm just trying to get rid of my old clothes, so let me just everybody's, right now people are taking everything, so let me just dump it over there and make myself feel good, and be able to testify, and say like, hey, I helped and I donated, stuff to those who are in need in the LA fire, but it's your used stuff, it's your stuff that you were going to throw away, and you just found an opportunity to just like,
Mm,
throw your trash, to somebody
yeah.
else, and it's like, no, there's, these are, again, this is people are these are people who are still humane, who are still have value, and therefore, present them with value. But
Mm,
anyways, those are some of the things that I did see, that you saw people just take advantage of the crisis, and it's actually, I would say, even now what's coming up is these sharks are coming in, and really taking over the land, and not creating opportunities for people to get back into their homes or back into their communities, because now prices have gone up. I
mm,
think my friend out there who's in the trenches, he shared with me right now, to build to build a house, their same house that was burnt out, to rebuild it, it now costs 800 square feet. I think you just shared with me your
you
testimony
did. Yeah.
recently. So if you can think about purchasing or buying a house, and the square feet per square feet costs $800 to build, like that's a lot of money. So like a
Oh yeah.
house at 1,200 square feet, or a house at about 1,200 square feet, that's roughly going to be close to $1.2 million,
That's
to just rebuild. And these are homes that were passed down generationally. So
yeah.
these are homes that maybe, like, first generation bought it at 300, $400, $400,000, and then, and they were holding on to it because of the equity maybe was at 1.2, but they're not necessarily, so they're not necessarily, and this is just building is at 100 square feet, $800 per square feet. But think about the additional costs of like permits and all these other things that are going to cost to furnish the house. Like that's another maybe 300, $500, $500,000, that's on top. And so it's just like seeing some of these things that are coming up, and investors just coming in, and swooping, taking advantage again of the crisis.
And as I people, obviously I still got connections out there, right? They told me too. Is it true? They took away the fire insurance too for the home insurance fire.
Well, yeah. So I mean, the year before, specifically, State Farms. State Farms the year before said, "Hey, you have one more year, um, and we're only covering, we're going to be covering fire insurance. After the year, we're not covering that anymore." It was just only State Farms though,
Okay.
but State Farms had quite a big market. So literally December 31st, if people didn't switch by then, or got fire insurance somewhere else, the fire happened and they had no insurance.
Wow.
And so that was another piece too. That was just like, wow, like, okay, um, you almost, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you're like, okay, was this something that was planned and set
Yeah.
up? Because this is also a community that was predominantly black, brown, like one of the first black and brown communities that started to have ownership, right, in the
Mm,
U.S. And so it's one of those historic communities. And so you start wondering, like, okay, is this,
yeah.
well, and then you can also go if you're one of those other conspiracy theorists, with the Pacific Palisade, you can probably start talking about the whole like Diddy situation and all of that. Like, was this people just trying to burn down evidence?
Yeah. Oh no, get rid of that.
you
Get
know,
rid of
Get rid-
Please get rid of it. No,
so
that's crazy, man. People
you hear
listening
some
are here
crazy
like, ah,
stories.
they got them tin hats on now. They, they tripping.
you,
But no, but
you
like
hear
you said,
those,
I
yeah.
mean, for those people that are into conspiracies, or it could just be a crazy, just happen around the same time. Either way,
Right.
it is weird how it did, happen that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. People like, oh, okay. But no,
Exactly.
but I want to ask you, man, like even for you, you know, being on the grounds and helping people and people you I'm sure were close to or know have a bond with. What what for you? How did you kind of keep yourself encouraged, and how did you when you're dealing with someone like so sad when you share that story about that man losing everything and saw his sister's remains and stuff like that, right? Like
Mhm.
how do you communicate hope when it feels like everything around you has burned down?
Mm,
Ooh, that's a
yeah.
bar. Drop that.
Come on, I know, right? Drop that. Um, Man, how do you communicate hope when I think there's a time and a season for that. I think there's a time and a season where you start communicating that. In the moment, I think you're really just focused on supporting and being in action. So actually, hope in action versus hope in encouragement. And hope in action is really just, man, when somebody doesn't know where they're gonna move next because their 1 week voucher just wrapped up. The church shows up and say, "Hey, we got you. Um, we're gonna cover the next week, at this hotel for you until you find more permanent location." Um, Hope in action is seeing this church, and it's important for me to share the church's name because we I want to honor them and honor Pastor John Dick here at Victory Bible Church in Pasadena, that's been on the ground, still on the ground, still working 5-10 years from now,
Mm,
to be supporting this community. But they you saw them regularly just thinking ahead. Okay, so hope on the ground, or hope in action. It's okay now that you've gotten your essentials, you've gotten your food vouchers, you've gotten your clothes vouchers, you're somewhat situated in a location accommodation wise. Let's now even start giving you hope in the things that were more luxury. So it was awesome to see them partnering with some of the so it was cool to see our network, some of the larger churches in our network, come alongside this church and literally be hands on with them with weekly initiatives, outreach that they were doing to help the community. And I recall, like, I think it was like a few weeks out of the devastation, they were like, okay, let's shift now from being doing essential outreach work to doing more restoration outreach work, which I recall they did an awesome outreach that was like, uh, uh, I forgot how they worded it, but it was like you're creating a wish list. And so,
mm,
for example, right, some people lost laptops, people lost kids iPads, or stuff like that. And it was like, hey, let's just create a wish list. If you want a laptop because you had your work laptop, or you had your business laptop, or whatever, or your iPad, your kid's iPad or Nintendo Switch, like, hey, let's just create this wish list for you, and we'll you come back, you know, or you just come in and we just hand you a free laptop. We just hand you your kids, you know, because you created a wish list, the kids Nintendo Switch or iPad or something like that. That just kind of restoring people back to that they are worth something more than just, um, you know, fire evacuees, you know. And it was really cool to see that just happening in regards to hope being in action.
Okay. Um, basically, what do you how do you talk to your kids about natural disasters, not necessarily just this one but just in general, right? Because they saw the fires, they saw their dad out there, they saw it on the news. I'm sure people talking about it at school. So how do you kind of talk to them about that, educate them with that without necessarily causing fear?
That's good. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to just teach them that disasters are inevitable. Um,
Mm,
and you think about it too with kids, right? Like their disaster could be like my best friend at school no longer no didn't play with me, you know, today at school. Like that's a disaster for them, right?
yeah.
Um, and so it's just really working through like it's really helping them work through disasters are inevitable. And the greatest piece and the opportunity we have with disasters is that we get to show up um, in our authentic self. We get to show up in love. We get to show up with peace. We get to show up with hope. We get to show up knowing that this disaster is not the end, especially as a believer, right? It's like even if the disaster takes our life, it's not the end for us. We have hope in eternal life. And so being able to understand that a disaster does not define us and it does not limit us to fully continue to live out our purpose. And in understanding that it gives us an opportunity to be a light in times of despair, in times of darkness. Um, and then like you know the encouragement in leadership, right, is like okay, the leadership piece is teaching them to walk boldly into a disaster, not run away from it.
Mm,
You know, and again in response to the disaster with hope, with love, with peace. Not like others who charge into a disaster for the sake of stealing, you know, taking and
yeah.
you know, all those different pieces. Yeah.
So now my last one is just it's an easier one, hopefully for you. I try not to throw too many curveballs for you, but
Go
no,
ahead, man.
no, but just what from all of that, what do you feel like you learned about yourself, um,
Mm,
dealing with that? Going through that,
yeah.
seeing what they were dealing with, and having that empathy and all those different things. Like, what do you feel like you learned from that you can take on with you moving forward?
Yeah. Man, one of my mentors taught me this early as I started connecting with him, and he's been teaching me how to live out my purpose as a connector of people and a connector of purpose.
Mm,
And he told me this, man. This statement is that your net worth is your network.
mm,
Your net worth is your network. And so again, going back to the call with my friend Pastor John DeCure that Tuesday night, and just hearing the despair, hearing the disaster, hearing the devastation, and the amount of need that is financial need that is going to be required to rebuild and restore this community, restore some of the church members. I was like, man, I got no silver. I got no gold. you know, but man, I think God gave me an opportunity, and he's given me a space to speak into some people's lives, and be a voice of influence, or be a voice, a safe, reliable voice for God's church. And I think bro, I was like, I hope, literally, I was like, I hope the relationships and the network we've built can actually show up like the church. And so it was really cool to see. It was really cool to see my my net worth, my network, or my network be my net worth, right?
Mm,
Um, and really show up in an amazing way. And again, like I'll say it's my network, but it's God's network, right?
yeah.
God's network really just showing up in a crazy way, and showing up and showing and saying like, hey, man, when the body of Christ shows up together, and comes to serve one another, there's no crisis, there's no devastation that can't be resolved because his body has come as one, has been unified as one. And God mentions it in Psalms 133. He commands, like, there's a blessing that's commanded through us coming together as one. And so, man, going back to your question, what I've seen and learned from all of this was really recognizing and seeing God using, um, somebody like me who's just willing to say yes, who's willing to believe that, um, you know the church can be a light, and the church can be something that can support and lift up people's lives up, and bring them back to a place of humanity, bring them back to a place of value, of purpose, and being seen. And so, I think I saw that, man. And so honestly, I've started to lean more into that,
Mm,
because I recognize there's so many mini crises and disasters that are happening across the world, and if I can micro, focus on it, that are literally happening in our neighborhoods. And and it's like, man, if the church can show up more consistently, and not just only show up when it's like a major nationwide or nationally televised crisis, but show up where like, the homeless community that's just completely being ignored and completely being shoved around from the city, and that the church shows up and like loves on them, restores them. The single mom who is, who's being who's being pushed away from, their previous family that they were connected to, or their friends, and who's just struggling to just keep your family together. We can show up for them. And so that's where I'm believing, man, like that, the more the local church can come together. And I say the local church, I mean, that's me and you. That's,
yeah.
doesn't need to be an organization with a northern organization. Just can be Christians,
Yeah.
a brother and sister in
Yeah.
Christ, like coming alongside and just serving the need. And so, yeah, so that's what I see, man. And that's what came out of it for me, is really just seeing the evidence of the local church really, as it's unified and serving the need of the city, that we can literally see revival happening, which is what's happening in Pasadena. So
That's dope.
Pasadena, Altadena. So
That's
so that's
dope.
exciting to see that.
That's dope, man.
Yeah.
Nah, and I always like to give flowers to my guests, man. So one, I want to thank you, for coming on and y'all don't know who Kevin is like I do, but like I said, he's such a kind person. He's not even one of those people that wants to be in the spotlight. He's fine in the background. But you do so much, man. That's why, as I was joking, y'all, because he's a celebrity. Nah, he's like I say, he's one of the most chill, humble person you could ever meet. But I thank you, bro, for what you're doing in the community. I thank you for what you're doing, as a father, as a husband. Obviously, happy Mother's Day to your lovely wife, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, bro, I just thank you for you being you, man. And I know what you're doing is crazy. I look at, like, I know your mother is smiling, and the tools and how she prepared you for this moment. I know you're gonna pass that down to your girls as well, man. So blessings to
Yeah.
you, man. And I thank you for coming on with me.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Before I wrap up, I remembered I did not answer this one question for you, which I think is important
Yeah,
in regards to the money in church and the point of view, right? Like
yeah,
how can we speak into that? I do want to encourage for those of us, right, who've either have seen and experienced abuse in the church with money and finances, or even have been lied to, manipulated in regards to finances and giving to the church. I want to just like recognize that and apologize on behalf of my fellow clergy men and women, and recognize and encourage you and let you know, man, like um, the church is messy, and it's built upon broken people,
mm,
and that's the greatest nuance of it all, is that it's a beautiful mosaic of broken pieces and broken people and broken structure and broken systems, and but God uses that, and that's why his grace and his mercy just is so needed for us to
mm,
be to continuously be humbled, and submitting to his will and submitting to his purpose. And so I just want to encourage you that two things: that church is broken and it's led by broken people.
mm,
And then secondly is that I want to encourage you that just because you might have experienced one or two, maybe even three, maybe even five experiences in a church, different churches that just either manipulated, utilized, and took advantage of giving for their own sake. And I just want to encourage you, for every five that are bad or 10 that are bad, there's at least one that's doing it as best as possible. And what I mean by best as possible, even when they get it wrong, they are willing to confess and bring it up to the forefront and make a change and make that adjustment. But they are literally doing their best to really fully live out and fully express God's love through the local church. And so I just want to encourage you, if you have not found that, continue to look for it, continue to seek it, because there's churches that are out there that are living out the biblical standings of the kingdom of God. And so that's what
right.
I want to encourage you on. And if you're looking to find one, let me know. I'll try to find one for you, and
I love that.
hopefully we can find one
Well,
that's
you gotta let
kingdom
them know
building.
where can they find you though. You can't just say
Yeah.
that and then they can't find you.
Well, you can find me. I'm at Discovery Christian Church. I'm the executive pastor there. It's in Marino. The church is in Moreno Valley, and great Bible teaching church, diverse church. Been around for 40 plus years. It's elder led, and so and so there's a level of covering. It's not just led by one person. Not that there's anything wrong with that, with being staff led by one person. But just if you are looking for something that's like you've tested out stuff that are staff led, and want to try something different, that's something that's a little bit different.
What about your Instagram? What if they're not in California, sir? I'm in
If
Texas.
you're not in California, my Instagram is my first name initial K, last name Bugingo, Bugingo. You can follow me there, and any other pages that I run are on that profile as well. So K Bugingo at Gmail. I'm ready. I'm giving you my email. That is my email, kbugingo at gmail. But my
Oh, we got that
Instagram
too.
is at kbugingo.
Hey, that's okay. See, I
Yes.
told y'all he don't like the spotlight. That's why I said, "What is your stuff, sir?" but nah, I appreciate you, man, so
Yes.
much. Like I said,
Yeah,
man,
man.
for being on, guys, and guys, again, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, tell a friend, and like always, you don't have to be perfect, but you always have to be present. See you guys on the next
I'm
one.
on.